In terms of our agenda today, Jamie Morin from our coaching faculty will give you a quick overview of our ICF accredited program. Then we'll hear from Jackie Sherman, who has a lesson on the cycle of experience. And we'll move from that to Stuart is going to talk about polarities, a key piece of our approach to coaching and helping others develop and grow. We will have a coaching demonstration, and I bring that up now as to say that we will be looking for a volunteer a little bit later. So think about if you might like to volunteer to be coached for about 20 minutes. It's a nice opportunity to work with Stuart Simon, and we'd love that. So if we have a volunteer, please be thinking about that and be ready to put your hand up a little bit later. And finally, we'll finish with a panel discussion with our coach graduates who are joining us today to tell you a little bit about their experience of the program and how they're using their coaching in their practices and their work today. So I think that's most of what I wanted to cover with you. And so again, welcome. We're so delighted you're here with us. And I'm going to turn things over to Jamie to talk a little bit about our program. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And I'm Jamie Morin. I am on the coaching faculty at the Gestalt Center. I'm also on the leadership faculty. And I am a former corporate executive turned organizational psychologist and started a small practice about 6.5 years ago, doing coaching, consulting, and teaching, and I'm in Booth Bay, Maine. And I launched my business as a result of participating in this program, where it was a critical component of shifting gears from the corporate world to my own business. So for the next 8 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you about what the program is, what the design is, what to expect, and that will give you the opportunity to jot down questions that you've got that you can ask the panelists later on, or if there's something that's really confusing that I'm talking about, please feel free to jump in with a question now if you need to. But Sue, if you would put up the coaching definition slide, please. So we'll just start with one definition of coaching, and this is from ICF, the International Coach Federation. Coaching is a partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential and is working toward their desired outcomes. And that's sort of fundamental to the approach that we teach at GISC. So let's look a little bit at the program. Next slide, please. So the requirements for GISC certification are completion of four-day live online Gestalt coach training sessions. And in case you've got questions about what that experience is like from a virtual perspective, we've got one of our students from this year's program, which has been entirely in an online format to answer those questions should they come up in the Q&A session. And so four-day sessions. And then in addition to that, there are some other elements as well. So there's participation in 7 mentor coaching sessions. So the program extends over 7 months, and each month you meet with your mentor coach. And I can tell you from experience and observation of other faculty, your mentor coach is available to you, your faculty are available to you throughout the program, not just in pre-scheduled sessions. In addition to the mentor coaching sessions, you're going to meet with your learning group twice a month during the 7-month program. And your learning group will also be your practicum group, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You'll complete 50 hours of individual client coaching, and you'll create a program portfolio that documents your learning and accomplishments throughout the 7-month program. Next slide. So Let's talk a little bit about what the live online sessions look like. We said they're four-day sessions. They're full days, 9:15 to 5:15. They are Thursdays through Sundays. And these are the dates for the coming year, the coming coaching year, 21 and 22. These sessions combine a variety of modalities. A typical day consists of, typically in the morning, you're doing different learning modules, you're doing small group exercises, there may be faculty demonstrations, which you're going to get a little taste of in a bit. And then the afternoons are dedicated typically to coaching practicums. And I mentioned earlier, you'll meet twice a month with your learning group outside of the program. You'll work with your learning group in the form of your practicum typically every afternoon throughout the program. And the practicums really allow you to develop your coaching skills using the GISC approach to coaching. You get to learn not only from doing, but by watching your colleagues in practice as well. And then you'll get feedback and you'll provide feedback about what you're seeing in the coaching sessions. You'll get feedback from your colleagues, you'll get feedback from your faculty, who is typically your mentor coach as well. So it's can be a little bit of an intimidating experience at first as you move into the practicum sessions, but I can tell you that after I got past my intimidation, it was the most meaningful part of the learning for me. And I think it's a real strength in this program. In addition, you will have a written exam that often learning groups collaborate on. This isn't about trying to trip you up. This is about trying to help you integrate all of the learnings that will be shared over the course of this 7 months. And then a final oral exam. And the oral exam looks a lot like a practicum session, only a little longer and a little more complete. And it will be you and a client from the class, somebody that you haven't worked with typically, so somebody not in your practicum group, and in front of your faculty who will be using ICF standards to evaluate that final exam. So let's take a look at some of the key elements in the program. So this list is not completely comprehensive, but it gives you a good sense of the components of the program. Understanding the requirements for GISC certification as a coach, for ICF certification as a coach, should you want to continue and apply for certification with them. It's not required, but you will. We are an accredited coach training program with ICF, and this program positions you very well to move toward that certification. You can see within this list that there are a number of things that are italicized, and this italics indicates a core Gestalt concept. And I want to talk a little bit about that because Gestalt theory has inspired the development of practices that enable people to become more intentional in their choices and more effective in the world. And when they're applied, these learning behaviors offer an effective mix of interpersonal, strategic, and tactical experiences. To support the teachings of the Gestalt International Study Center, many of these concepts have been incorporated into our programs, such as this coaching program. We believe that this is what differentiates us, not only as a coach training program, but as a trainer in general. And we're going to spend some time on a couple of these concepts as we move through this open house program today. We're going to start with cycle of experience and then move into a look at polarities. So you'll get a sense of what distinguishes this program from other coach training programs through some of what we'll bring to you today. And I want to point out that during the 4 sessions, nearly an entire day is spent on helping you think through what you want in a business. If you're looking to start a coaching business or build an existing coaching business, nearly a full day is spent on topics that we think will be very beneficial to you as you're contemplating what your needs are there. So let's look at the portfolio, which is how you demonstrate the work that you're doing outside of the actual training program. So one of the first components of the portfolio is your coach development plan. You're going to work on this yourself. You're going to talk with your mentor coach about it, and it provides the focus for your development throughout the program. So at a minimum, we'll be asking you to think about what are your intentions for the first session? What do you want to get out of it? Where do you feel your developmental edge is? And then how are you progressing in your work toward meeting the goals that you set for yourself in that first session? And then between the first and the second session, there's a fair amount of time. You'll be doing a lot of coaching, you'll be doing a lot of reading, you'll be doing a lot of work with your practicum/learning group, and you'll be able to execute some of the strategies that you develop for yourself for moving toward your goals as a coach. And we're going to ask you about your intention as you move into the second session. And then where are you as you're coming out of that second session? And the same for the third session. And then as you go into the fourth session. So that framework, that development plan, sort of scaffolds your learning from session to session. Your client coaching, you're going to be doing 50 hours of client coaching. It can be paid or unpaid. Paid can include bartered transitions. A lot of students in the program do a little bit of coaching with colleagues in the program. They barter back and forth on some of that, but you're also going to be working with clients that ideally are in your target market as you start to think about where you want to locate your business as a coach. Do you want to work with executives? Do you want to be a life coach? Do you want to work as a coach supporting recovery in people with substance abuse disorder, which is the focus of our student who has joined us today, Mary Grove. So you're going to be coaching and logging all of the coaching sessions just in terms of when did they occur, how long were they, the name of the client. You'll also be recording 3 of those sessions and submitting those as part of your portfolio, audio recordings. And then you'll have a log of the required readings. There are 8 or 9 books in the current list of required readings. There are also some articles that are provided in advance of the program and within each of the sessions. You'll do a log of your mentor coaching calls and your learning group meetings. And none of these logs are substantive. It's a sentence or 2 about what the key takeaways are, but it helps you keep track of all of the little aha moments that you had so that you can really integrate the learning along the course of the program. And then you'll be doing a research paper. So this will allow you to really dig into an area of coaching that interests you and explore aspects of it that you want to learn more about. It's not a long paper, it's 10 pages maximum, double spaced. There are books or articles typically that support that, so we would expect a bibliography for that. And you'll work with your mentor coach on figuring out where you want to focus and establishing a plan for that paper. So I've given you a lot of information. You'll have a chance to ask questions as we move through this next hour and a half. And now I'd like to introduce Jackie Sherman, another member of our faculty, and she's going to talk to you about a core Gestalt concept. Jackie?
Great. Thanks, Jamie. I'm Jackie Sherman. I am coming to you today from my office in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been on the CDPCC, the coach faculty, pretty much from the beginning. I also teach in some of the other programs. And I want to say that I'm trained both in Gestalt consulting as well as coaching. And Gestalt is really the basis of both of my coaching, my consulting, and now my supervision practice. I want to talk to you today about one of the core concepts called the cycle of experience. And I'm remembering as I think about talking about this, how much I must admit that I struggled to really get the cycle of experience when I first learned it. So will you put up the cycle slide for me? Thank you. And in retrospect, I'm really wondering, what did I struggle so much? It depicts a very natural process. It is a conceptual screen or a framework which can be used to either view an event or an interaction or an experience, both sort of after, but also while the experience is in process. And it is core to working as a Gestalt practitioner. I'm going to first describe the cycle, and then I'm going to relate it to coaching. So you'll see there are two axes: time, as time progresses, and energy. And the cycle starts, and it depicts the cycle happens over and over again. And you'll see the energy starts low, builds, crescendos, and then comes back down to the back end of the curve. And we depict it as a curve like this so that we can talk about the shift in energy over time. I want to say that it happens over and over again. It happens at an overall level and lots of little cycles along the way. It starts with the concept of sensation, something that you experience. It's really describing originally a physical experience. So you sense something, and that sensation creates, as you experience the sensation, it creates awareness. That awareness has higher energy than the sensation that it started with. And over time, that awareness can mobilize into action. So the greater the awareness gets, the more interested you are in it. It creates an interest and a mobilization of energy toward action. You take the action. After that happens, the energy around it starts to diminish, and you integrate the result of that action, and then eventually the energy falls back into the ground, and you're ready for the next cycle. One of the things about this framework is that it can be, for example, you can use it to design something, design a meeting, design an interaction, manage how you go about managing a coaching session. And each of us has cycles happening. I have one, you have one. As a coach, I'm paying attention not only to my own cycle of experience, but to the cycle of experience that my coachee is having. And I'm, in paying attention as a coach, I'm asking questions. My questions support the awareness of the client. And as the client is becoming aware of what's happening for them or what they're getting interested in, then they get interested in some kind of action. One of the things that we have to do as coaches is make sure that our interest and our energy doesn't lead too much relative to where the coach is. So we have to stay kind of matched up with our client, not behind them and not too much ahead of them. everyone moves through their cycles with different relative speed. So if I'm much faster than my client in my interest in moving from sensation to awareness, I'm going to lose the client. So one of the things that we pay a lot of attention to is sort of teaching you how to both experience and observe the cycle of experience, and then also be able to use it as a framework for moving through a coaching session. Within a session, there may be several cycles, and the overall arc of the session will be an entire cycle, or should be an entire cycle, because what we believe is that if you don't make it all the way through to the integration and assimilation, what happens gets lost. So I want to leave you with the notion that this is really a core concept, and that we spend quite a bit of time on it, both in the beginning of our teaching and throughout the program, so that you really get this cycle in your bones and are able to work with it effectively as a coach. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Stuart Simon, who will talk with us about polarities.
So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I am actually on the Cape. I don't live here. I down here. What do you call vacationing while you're working, or working while you're vacationing? Whatever you call that, that's what I'm doing. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston, where I have a coaching practice, a psychotherapy practice, and a consulting and training practice. I've been on the faculty of a GISC for nearly 20 years. Oh goodness, evidently time flies whether you're having fun or not. And I am the co-director of the coaching program that we're talking about with you today, the coaching development program for coach certification, a competency development program for coach certification, and evidently you have to work hard to learn that. I think that's part of how we decide who the faculty is if you can say that. In any case, I'm pleased to be with you today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about polarities, and the way I want to ground that is to say that Gestalt is especially well positioned as a theory base that supports coaching. There are, I believe there are lots of good coaching programs in the world where you will learn a lot of good coaching approaches and techniques. All coaching programs will teach you things about developing a good contract, about asking powerful questions, about building awareness, about measures of success. And all of which are part of our program. What I think Gestalt brings to coaching is what Gestalt has brought to psychotherapy and consulting, and any area that has to do with human growth and development is always, even though it started out as a theory of psychotherapy, it was a major break from psychotherapeutic approaches at the time, because it was oriented around learning, growth, and development, as opposed to fixing or focusing on pathology or dysfunction. And that has served us well as a coaching approach, in particular when we think about the idea of polarities. So I'm going to give you a brief description of polarities. The difficulty for all of us in life is that we have things that we want to be better at. I wish I were faster. I wish I paid more attention. I wish I was more detail oriented. I wish I saw the bigger picture. There's any number of things that all of us, that any of us can want to focus on. What we might miss is that anything we want to get better at often has a polarity. So if I want to get better at moving quicker and not getting bogged down, for every one of us that wants to be able to move quicker and not get so bogged down, there's somebody that's working at getting slower, at paying more attention to details, to be more nuanced. For every one of us that wants to have more free time to work less, there's others that feel like, you know, I really ought to focus more and really develop my practice. So for anything that we want to do, there's always a polarity. And the difficulty is that we tend to see the things that we want to get better at as we notice what we want to get better at, and if we're not careful, we will diminish the things we're doing as somehow being bad, right? So for example, I'm somebody that wants to get, I work all the time at talking less, believe it or not. I work all the time. My faculty members that are on the screen right now, they're laughing because they know how true that is. I have to work on not interrupting, on not saying all the things that I think, if I just remember to tell you this today on the screen, it'll make such a difference to you. And I work all the time at not saying all the things that I think will be helpful. And there's somebody somewhere who's learning to speak up, right? So that what polarities gives us is the notion, it's an attempt to debunk the idea of there are better and worse ways of being. There are better ways of being in some contexts and worse ways of being in some contexts. So for example, if I asked you, what's better? Being tired, knowing you can go to sleep and get a good night's rest, or waking up refreshed, ready to face the day? Which one's better? What's better, being hungry and sitting down, having the resources to sit down and eat a sumptuous meal, or sitting back and feeling satisfied at having had a satisfying meal? What's better, breathing out or breathing in? So these are all ways of trying to that when you're in a situation and you're working with a coaching client, your coaching client will invariably have something they want to do differently. And if we're not careful, we'll help them feel bad about the thing they are doing, as opposed to seeing the thing they are doing as having value, but being limited. That's where we use the idea of polarities. Can you bring up the slide, Sue? So Irv and Miriam Polster, who were early Gestalt theorists at the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland, wrote that life is a never-ending series of polarities. When an individual explicitly recognizes one aspect of herself or himself, the presence of the antithesis or polar opposite or polar quality is implicit. So let me see if I can can you bring up the next slide, Sue, and then we're going to go to the exercise. So one way of thinking about it, if you look at our arrow here and you focus on the left-hand side of the screen, we have a polar schema here. One way of thinking of polarities is there are things that I do easily, that I'm more practiced at. I may hang out there the most. I may do it well. And then there's things I want to do that I'm not so good at the other end of the polarity, that's less practice. It may be less comfortable. I may do it less well. So if I say to myself, I want to do this thing I'm not so good at. I want to talk less. I want to not interrupt as much. I want to not think I have to say the next thing, and that's the thing that's going to make a difference in somebody's life. I have to make sure to not diminish that I like teaching, that I have things to say. It's easy for me to speak up. I do that easily. And if I'm not careful, I'll diminish that rather than be pleased at the fact that I know how to do that and get interested in this thing that's harder for me to do. So we're trying to diminish the better, worse, good, bad quality of behavior change that your clients are always going to come to you with. So I want to give you a little example of what we mean. Can you bring up the whiteboard, Sue? Okay, actually, if the first thing you do is stop the sharing for a second so I can talk to everybody. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to turn your mics on, and I want you to do an exercise with me, and it goes like this. Much of the time, we extol others and ourselves to not be judgmental. I'm going to ask you to be as judgmental as you possibly can for the next 3 or 4 minutes. And we're going to have Sue bring up the whiteboard. And the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think of behaviors that you think are bad behaviors, that people shouldn't do them. Maybe it's at a meeting, or maybe it's what you're trying to teach your kids, or any of the, put yourself in any context. And I'm just going to ask you to start to generate a list here of things that you think people shouldn't do. Now, there are things that I do want to eliminate. Violent behavior informed by power is what we call abuse. And so abusive behavior, there's nothing that I'm going to say we want to put up there, but I am going to ask you to, again, come up with behaviors. The only guideline here is it has to be a behavior. If you say people shouldn't be rude, all I'll do is ask you, well, what's the behavior that you're calling rude? You got it? Okay, now let's do the whiteboard, and people just speak up when you're ready.
Lying.
Lying. Can you get lying up there, Sue? Okay, next.
Procrastinating.
Procrastinating. All right, next. We'll see if we can get about 8 or 10 up here. Go.
Being mean.
What's that?
Being mean. Like saying mean things to people.
Oh, be mean. Okay. How about, can we, that's a, what might be mean as it, how about if we say shaming? Is that okay? Because that seems to capture. Okay, shaming.
Yep, that works.
Okay, let's get another one.
Interrupting.
Interrupting. Okay, a few more.
Turning conversations to one's own interests.
Being self-centered. How about that?
Good.
Self-centered. Okay, 2 more, just for the sake of time. We could probably do this for half an hour, but for the sake of time, let's do 2 more.
Talking over people.
Say again?
Talking over people.
Same as interrupting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 1 more, 2 more.
Insulting.
Insulting. Can that go in shaming?
Yes.
Okay, let's get a couple more so we don't have any overlap.
Overindulging.
Overindulging. Okay. And 1 more.
What would you say about being too hard on yourself? Critical? Critical.
Critical. Being critical. Okay. Okay, Sue, if we can start a second list. Now we're going to have a second list, and each of the words, what I'm going to ask you to do, one way of thinking about polarities is to think of kind of the opposite behavior. It's not the only way of thinking about it, but one way of thinking about polarities. What's the opposite behavior? So what's the opposite behavior of lying?
Truth.
Telling the truth. Okay, telling the truth, Sue. Procrastinating.
Working hard.
Working hard. How about on time?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. Shaming.
Comforting.
Comforting. Interrupting. Listening. Does that work? Anybody got a different word? I'm just wanting to, we have.
Waiting for your turn.
Holding space.
I was thinking patience, but listening makes more sense. It's more...
Listening. Okay, listening. Let's go with listening. Self-centered.
Generous.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Generous.
Generous. Be generous. Okay. Problem with overindulging is it's ambiguous. How about if we, what's the opposite of indulging?
Depriving.
Depriving. Okay. Depriving. And not, and being critical. How about what? Supportive.
Supportive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do now. I want you to look at this list. And I want you to, some of you have kids, some of you have friends who have kids, maybe nephews, nieces. At some point in our life, we begin to become a sense of responsibility to the next generation. So I want you to put yourself, if you would, in that frame of mind, and looking at this list, which of these behaviors would you want somebody that you were responsible for helping to raise, which of these behaviors would you want them to never, under any circumstances, be able to do?
The ones on the left?
Which one would you, okay, Celia, which one would you want them never to do?
None. At some point, I think there would be a middle. I don't know if I would say any.
Okay, I don't think I would disagree with you.
Sometimes you should be self-centered, sometimes.
So Celia is on to something here. The one that sometimes people complain about is shaming. Would you want somebody you know to ever be able to shame somebody?
Yes. Healthy shame.
Maybe if it was a bully.
Yes,
feel like you
absolutely. So if you can stop the sharing for even being self-critical. Can you stop the screen? Yeah. Even say, can you guys see the value of being self-critical? Can you imagine if you were never ever self-critical? Everything you did was fine. Everything I do is good. How? Because I'm never self-critical. The point here is not that we are trying to suggest that we should teach people behaviors like well, I'm going to stop myself for a second. We're not trying to create the notion that any behavior under any circumstances is fine. What Polarities teaches us is that even if you take these behaviors that we have judgments about, there is always a place for them. There is always a place. If we could never interrupt, what would you do if there was a fire? If you could never be self-critical, how would you ever get better at something? If you never procrastinated, when would you ever relax? So the point is that when we engage with clients from a Gestalt perspective in our coaching program, while they are almost always coming to us, I wish I didn't do this. What I wish I didn't do this does is hold on to energy. I have to stop doing this. I have to stop doing this. And until people can appreciate the value of what they're doing, it's very hard to release that energy and to move it towards something else, because I'm spending all of my energy trying not to do something, which is impossible to do. There is no behavior called trying not to do something. We can only try to do something else, but we try to do something else and we're still holding on to, this is a bad thing to do, and it ties up a tremendous amount of energy. And when we fight for behavior change, one very simple Gestalt notion is the more energy I can mobilize towards a new behavior, the more opportunity I will have to be successful. But in order to mobilize energy to a new behavior, I have to be able to let go of the way I'm holding on to my embarrassment, my shame, my self-criticism, whatever you call it. One should never lie. Oh, really? One should never lie? Anybody ever been to Amsterdam? If you go to Amsterdam, there's the Anne Frank House, which is a museum, a monument to lying. Okay. If you want to keep it simple, Mommy, is there a Santa Claus? Dear, do I look fat in these pants? So we could do this for quite a while. Focusing on polarities is a key approach to how we look at behavior change, because we want people to develop new behaviors, not give up and change behaviors. Gestalt is about creating range, not limiting oneself. So I'm going to stop there and see if we can give you an example of how we might do this in a coaching session. So we're going to ask for a volunteer, and I promise you I will do everything I can in this to not embarrass either you or me. I can't promise I won't embarrass myself. I can promise I will not embarrass you. So we have somebody that's on the screen for the first time who's willing to volunteer for a 10 or 15-minute coaching session.
I'm willing, but I don't want to take it from anyone else who might be willing.
Well, we're kind of on the first come, first served approach. So Celia, we will be glad to do a coaching.
So now what?
What's that?
I'm already embarrassed. So now what?
Well, we're off to a good start. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask everybody if you would stop your videos. Celia and I are going to be the only ones that don't stop our videos. Some of you know how to do this. In the upper right-hand corner of your particular window, there's a thing that says hide non-video participants. You may have to look in somebody else's screen. Stop your video, Jackie. Okay, so if you've done this, you'll see just Celia and I on the screen. We hope you've been able to do that. Celia, we're gonna not do what we might do, which is a good, 20, 25-minute session. We're gonna have a little bit of an abbreviated session. So we might move through things a little quicker than we would in an ordinary coaching session. I should have said to you, do you have something, a particular behavior that you'd wish you got better at, or one you wish you didn't do?
Yeah.
Do you have that in mind? Okay, I'll ask you about it in a second. First of all, what's that?
I have more than one.
Well, more than one. Okay, well, we'll have ample opportunity to at least look at one. Before we start, where are you calling from, Celia?
I'm in Oakhurst, New Jersey.
Uh-huh. And you live there?
Jersey
What's that?
Shore. Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore?
Jersey Shore, New Jersey. Yeah.
You live there?
Monmouth County. Yeah. This is where I live. I grew up here. Experimented in Manhattan for a couple of years before I had my kids, and they have to come back to grass. So
What do you do there?
I have 5 children.
So that's a lot of what you do.
They keep me very busy.
How old are your kids?
All boys, and they range from 10 to 17.
And they probably never fight with each other, right?
Never. They're angels.
No. Right. And I'm 25 years old. So now that we've established we'll both lie to each other. Okay. So thank you. I wish I had time to get to know you a little bit better, but we're going to move along a little quickly here. What would you like to work on today? One of the ways we start coaching sessions is to get a contract. So let's see if we can get a little contract here. What would you like to work on today?
I would say that I'm too critical of myself.
You're too critical of yourself.
Yeah, as a whole.
And so what in that would you like to work on?
I'd like to relax so that I can focus on what's important and what's real, and be able to realize anxiety is going to come, and it's going to be thrown at me all the time. So I would like to be able to focus on, like I said, what's real, let the anxiety kind of filter through, and not hold on to it.
Okay. So I'm going to back up a little bit. You'll learn in the program why what I'm doing is a little bit not kosher, but I'm going to do it for the sake of time. You'd like to work on being a little less self-critical. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If we're successful here today, what 15 or 20 minutes we're together, what would you take away?
Lately, when I look in the mirror, if not literally, when I look in the mirror, I just criticize myself. Part of it's because of COVID. And I'd like to say, wait a minute, what you see on what you're looking at is not who you are. And I would like to see who I am.
Okay. So
and because I'm confident that when I am not so critical, the real me is actually worthy.
So what will you walk away with at the end of this 15 or 20 minutes? Given our limited time.
When I see myself in the mirror, I won't be seeing myself in the negative. I'd be reminding myself of, I would see the positive person that I really am and not look at myself and see, what have you done?
Okay. So success here would be a little less, what have you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd like to be less self-critical.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me what you do. How are you self-critical? How do you talk to yourself?
First and foremost will become in my physical appearance. Weight, every pound counts. That's number one. A lot of times I can overspeak, kind of like what you were saying, and I lose the person's interest that I'm speaking with, and I'll continue to do that. But I don't know if that's the same thing as critical or not, but.
Well, it sounds like you're kind of criticizing. Sounds
So,
like you're kind of criticizing yourself right now.
there you go. Yeah, yeah,
Is that right? Okay.
yeah, I guess I am. Yeah.
Okay.
So, because if I'm not so worried about what somebody else would think of me, right, I probably would stop when the information isn't necessary anymore.
Okay. So would you like to never criticize yourself?
No, sometimes I should because I make mistakes and I should know,
Mhm.
you know, there's a limit to how much criticism I should allow. It helps you put things into perspective. But I shouldn't take it away with me for another hour.
Okay. So at least we're starting to shift, starting to change a little bit. I'm not saying you're starting to change. I'm saying what you're noticing is starting to change, that there's some places that being critical has a place, like actually helps you.
Yeah.
So where are the places that it helps you?
Well, I guess in that same type of conversation, sometimes I can hold myself back sometimes because I'll tell myself, Celia, you know you can overtalk, stop now, but it's not enough. I need
So
to.
okay. So it helps you self-correct sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one place that you probably wouldn't want to get rid of being self-critical. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other places?
Well, with my body image, I think it hurts me to be so. It hurts me to be so critical, but some criticism is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe it's not. Maybe I just think it is. But I feel like for me now, some criticism helps.
Yeah. So I'm kind of with you. Again, we'll notice that I'm not saying you've shifted, but how we're describing it has changed a little bit. Now you're starting to say, I think, there's some places that a certain amount of self-criticism actually can be helpful.
Mhm.
You're talking to somebody who knows quite a bit about how that, because it is very important for me that I remind myself not to talk too much. Now, is that criticism? Is that being self-critical when I do that to myself?
I don't know what you want me to say.
Whatever you'd like to.
When I do it to myself, I take it as a criticism. But when you say it to me, I see you as giving yourself just a good pointer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes tremendous sense. So what's the difference between you and me? I'm giving myself a good pointer.
Right. I don't know.
So one way of thinking of it is that a certain amount of self-criticism is giving ourselves good pointers.
Right.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
But you find yourself doing it way more than you'd like.
Yes.
What would you like to do more of? If you weren't being self-critical, what would you like to do more of that would balance that out? Yeah.
To get past the point of it being helpful, it becomes hurtful.
Yeah. So what would you like to, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to shift to maybe giving myself compliments.
Like what?
Even on that criticism. So for example, if I feel haggard today, well, compliment myself because the kids have been home for 12 months practically without any type of real schedule, and I'm still standing.
So what's it like to say that to yourself right now?
I don't really believe it as enough right now.
As
but
enough,
I would like to believe it.
Enough for what?
For me to take away the criticism. To take away the critical.
Yeah. Well, that's where I want to play with you a little bit. I'm not sure we can take away criticism. I think we can add something.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So when you said I'd like to say to myself, well, I could say I was haggard,
Yeah.
or I could say, given what I've been through for the last 12 months, it's amazing that I'm even standing.
Right. Right.
You could add that.
Right.
I don't know that you're going to eliminate. I don't know that you're going to, what was that?
I said, tomorrow I'll blow my hair. I said,
well,
tomorrow I'll, or whatever, I'll maybe add things to get me back to feeling better and not say, thank God I'm still standing.
Yeah. So what else would you like to be able to say more of? Since I think we've agreed a certain amount of self-criticism kind of helps us get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you would like to add more affirmative things is what you're saying. Is that correct? I'm still standing.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
I simply asked you, what would you like to be doing if you weren't criticizing? You said, I'd like to say to myself things like, after 12 months, I'm still standing. I was just wondering if there's other things like that you'd like to say to yourself.
I don't know. I don't think about it so much, I guess.
Well, then I'm going to push you to think about it.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe I'm excited to what I'm looking forward to. I'm excited to this learning here is exciting to me, and it's fulfilling me on the inside. This is the beginning, not my first opportunity to learn, but I'm still in the infancy stages of learning.
Okay.
And I guess that goes back to the curve. That's exciting. So that's something that can give me positive energy.
So is there any credit due to you that you're putting yourself in this situation?
I get, yes, but I kind of felt cornered and then it came upon me. But yes, credit because I took the step.
You felt cornered.
Yeah.
Somebody cornered you?
No, just that my life was feeling so stressful, and then I started just reading up on what was going on around me, and then reading more and more and more, and then taking the one step and the next step and the next step, and then I kind of said, well, hey, maybe I could learn for myself to get better with my situation, and then even take it to the next step. I can help somebody else because I know I'm not the only one like this.
So is there a compliment in there for you about this step you've taken or not?
Well, it takes courage, I think. The step of wanting to help somebody takes generosity.
Okay, so if I slow you down a little bit, would you say that you demonstrated a little courage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually know that about myself,
Yeah.
except I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. So what's it like to say that you know you have courage? What's that like for you?
I don't think, I think I would look upon somebody else with courage, with greater, I would be more, I can't think of the word, but
Take your time. Take your time.
admiration.
Okay. Somebody else you would admire.
Yes.
Okay.
And for me, it's almost like, okay, just stick it in your bag and go.
Okay.
You got it, but go. You're going to keep going. I don't really absorb it or.
Okay. I got you. So how about if you metaphorically stand over here with me? You're metaphorically here and we're looking at you. Can you see yourself on the screen?
Well, now I see myself on the screen. Yeah.
So what if you were metaphorically with me and you noticed what other people might see? You say, I would say it about somebody else.
Yeah.
So what if you and I were looking at you and said that person just demonstrated some courage? Would that help you or not?
Oh, I'd be so embarrassed.
You'd be embarrassed.
Yeah. Kind of to get the highlight. Yeah. I'd get very emotional and.
You'd be embarrassed about what?
Just being focused, all the focus on me.
I see.
Saying that if you would tell everyone, wow, there's Celia, she's so courageous, something like that.
Well, do you know that everybody is noticing you right now?
Don't make me think about it.
Well, I'm going to push you to think about it right now, because what you're telling me is that for you to do this takes some courage. Is that correct?
Sure, of course. Yeah, a lot of courage.
And everybody is noticing. It's just you and me right now.
So I try to ignore that when the courage comes in.
I know. I'm not letting you very much, am I?
No. Yeah.
So somebody that would be shy about being the center of attention, somebody that would be shy about, oops, can you stop your video, Linnea? Thank you. Somebody that would be shy about being the center of attention would have to take some courage to be on the screen right now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, same question. What's that like?
I don't know. Now you're making me tear. Do
you know what the tears are for?
No. They come. I tear easily.
Okay, that's good for me to know. So I won't worry about you then. Is that okay?
Well, yeah, don't worry about me, but I can
okay.
get a little, like at commercials.
Okay. Okay.
It doesn't matter, but
yeah, no, I understand. But nonetheless, it can sometimes mean that we're having some feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay with my question if it's okay, and I'll stop if you want me to, Celia.
Okay.
According to your definition, somebody that's being the center of attention right now would be demonstrating some courage.
Yeah. Well, it depends, I guess, because
For
some
you
people-
to do this, it demonstrates some courage,
Yeah.
which means you're demonstrating some courage, correct?
Correct.
So I'm just going to be pushy and ask you to just notice what that's like. It may
A little
it's
bit exciting that I can do it.
a little exciting.
Yeah, a little bit
So we
exciting.
went from teary to exciting.
Yeah, because
You like it? You like it?
well, I used to be the alternative. I was really quiet. I was the one under the radar in the classroom.
Yeah. But right now,
Better.
you're
Yeah.
the center of
I have
attention.
both. I have both, I guess.
Yeah. Right now, you're the center of attention.
Yeah, most of it's making me feel uncomfortable.
Well, you don't get credit for being courageous if it's not uncomfortable. Courage isn't doing things that are easy. Courage is doing things that are hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that getting rid of self-criticism, limiting your self-criticism isn't going to be stopping being self-critical. It's going to be adding moments like this. Do you know what I mean?
Think so?
It's going to be adding moments where you think of yourself as possibly, maybe having done something to be pleased with.
Right.
What do you think?
I think that's nice. So when this is
That
over
make-
and I go to the mirror, I'd say, wow, you're courageous.
Will you do that?
I probably will.
You'll tell me
That.
if I run into you again, you'll tell me whether you believed it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are you going to take away from today, Celia? Because you already told me that you're going to do your measure of success. You're going to go to the mirror.
Yeah.
But tell me what you're going to take away.
Wow, that was intense. I am going to take away that it's okay to be somewhat critical, but it's really important to know what to do with that. And in what category of your brain and stress level will you allow that to sit and marinate? And when it's time to let it go, let it go. And at the same time, focus on, I guess, why is it even there? And what do you have either that can complement it or that negates what you just said, what you just criticized?
I'm going to vote for compliments it. Can I vote for compliments it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Anything you want to say that would help as a way of closing down our session, because we have to stop now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for being such a gracious and engaging volunteer.
Thank you. I feel lucky to have had this opportunity.
Well, that sounds like the opposite of self-critical.
Okay.
Okay.
Marinate.
Okay. Nice to be with you. Thank you, Celia.
Thank you.
Okay, so people can bring their videos up.
Did I mute now or?
Yeah, probably. We're just going to be some of the regular folks now. We're going to just be part of the crew, you and I. We're going to go into the background like everybody else.
Right. I'm okay with that. Thanks.
And so now I'm turning it over to you, Jamie. Is that correct? And you're going to turn it over to the panel?
Jackie.
Oh, Jackie. I'm turning it back to Jackie, and Jackie's going to set up the panel. And everybody can I suggest that we all give a little applause to Celia for being such a willing volunteer?
Yeah. Okay, I think my video has disappeared on me. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Celia. I am trying to get my video back.
It's back, Jackie. We can see you.
Oh,
we can
great.
see you. Yeah, you're good.
Excellent, because at the moment I cannot see myself. So there we go. Okay, great. So we're going to move into the panel. Will you, Sue, just put quickly the panel slide up for me? Our purpose here is couple-fold. We want to give you an opportunity to hear from a couple of our students, our graduates rather, and also from one of our current students, but we're going to focus first on the panel. We have with us this afternoon Wes Schwab, who graduated in 2014, Lorna Jane Norris, who graduated in 2018, and Jane Weiss, who graduated in 2019. And I'm going to ask them each first to introduce themselves. We'll go in the order on the slide from left to right. You'll just say, they'll introduce themselves and then share a bit from their experience of having been in the program. And then I have a few questions which I'm going to ask them, and then I'm going to invite you all to ask your questions. So Wes, can we start with you?
We can't hear you, Les. You have to unmute your phone too.
Right. Still can't hear you.
Les, can you unmute your phone square? As if it's your image.
Yeah, your phone square is muted.
Huh. Perhaps we could start with someone else and call back in.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Yep. Yeah, let's do that. Lorna Jane, you want to go?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure to be here. Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Lorna Jane Norris, and I am one of those people who had a kind of midlife, mid-career pivot a few years ago, which some of you may also be considering that or experiencing that in your own lives. And that's why you're on this call. So I had the first half of my life in executive leadership in the nonprofit community arts education sector. And so sort of leadership and mentorship and coaching within that frame has always been a part of my love and development as a leader. And that's how I first came to the center about 6 years ago. And I took a leadership skills development training, and it was love at first sight, I have to say. And I maintained contact with the center and then participated in this program in 2017-18 with Stuart and Jackie, in fact, and then went on to do executive coaching and personality dynamics at the beginning of 2020. And about an hour ago, I just finished a group facilitation skills course at the center, also in the virtual setting. So in 2020, I had the rug pulled out and precipitated a career shift for me. And I was able very quickly to draw on my coaching training in a very, very real and immediate way. And I launched my own business right prior to COVID hitting, LJN Advisory, which partners with individuals and small nonprofit organizations to manage and embrace transition. And through that firm, I offer leadership coaching, consulting, interim leadership, and leadership search. So in regards to the coaching program specifically, I want to draw your attention to what I see as three of my major takeaways. One is preparedness. The second one is principles. And the third one is ongoing support and community. So in regards to preparedness, I know this sounds like a really obvious thing, but the content of the program and the modes of learning actually prepared me to be a coach. I know that sounds like a really obvious requirement, but I was prepared at the end of that training to actually be a coach. So despite having informally coached people and mentored people throughout my career, I shall never forget the first time when you are sitting in that seat and Jackie Sherman says, "All right, it's time, and you have to coach someone for the first time. Stop talking about it and reading about it and actually just do it. And in order to do that, you need an environment that is safe, knowledgeable, and curious, and the center and this program creates that for you. And so over the past year, my coaching and consulting business has built slowly and steadily, along with my confidence. And I recently did become ACC accredited. And going through that process only reinforced my understanding of how thoroughly this program prepares you for working in the field. The second way, like I said, is around principles. So you are just immersed in Gestalt principles, for example, the cycle of experience and polarities. And as Jackie says, that has prepared me to be both a coach and a consultant. And they've become the foundations of my personal life and my professional life in my practice and approach, the focus on the now, the process, and connecting with clients in a truly authentic way is how I get clients, build relationships, and keep clients. And in 2020, it's shown us vividly the value of true connection. And I think this particular program both models connection and teaches connection in the principles of contact and presence. And it's what clients are looking for and really needing, especially in our virtual world. For example, I'm working with two newly onboarded CEOs right now who have never met their direct reports in the first year of their time with their organization. And so the Gestalt approach and philosophy uniquely, I think, prepares you to meet people and be helpful in the virtual setting. And then very quickly, finally, this piece around ongoing support and community. The training doesn't end when you get that certificate. You're signing up to belong to something bigger, and this generosity value that the center exudes manifests itself in a deeply connected network of faculty, staff, and alumni, and a high level of authentic peer support. Doesn't matter whether, like Stuart or Jackie and Jamie, you've been practicing for 20 years, or if this is your first time on the call. Everyone has something of interest to say. So finally, I just want to say that I'm thrilled to have found this new way of being and contributing to the lives of individuals and organizations in the second half of my professional chapter that's also rewarding and energizing to me. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, both in this setting and offline if you want to connect with me via LinkedIn. So thanks so much.
Jackie, you're muted now.
Sorry. Thank you, Lorna Jane. I'm going to keep moving to the right and wrap back around to Les afterwards. So Jane, how about you? Would you introduce yourself and sort of tell us about your experience?
Oh, sure. I'm delighted to be here and to talk about my GISC experience. My background is in organization and leadership development. So I came to the program with a fair amount of coaching experience. I've had the good fortune of working for a global Fortune 50 company, academic medicine. I worked for a consulting firm that focused on creating great workplaces. And then in between all those things, I would have my own practice. So I kind of went in and out of organizations. That's been my trajectory. And my first coach training actually was in 1999 at the Gestalt Center in Cleveland. And I got a taste of kind of what the Gestalt approach to coaching was all about. And then I took a couple of other coaching courses, and they just weren't that satisfying. And then I heard about the Gestalt International Studies Center and this program from a colleague of mine at NYU Medical Center at James Kearney, and he had absolutely raved about the program. And then I was hit with an illness for a couple of years and had to leave my work, and was then rethinking what I wanted to do as I was kind of coming back to feeling better. And I decided that I had always really wanted my IACF certification. But I had never really wanted to go through the application that's kind of a hodgepodge. And I felt my training had been a hodgepodge, and I wanted something that was kind of a unifying focus that Gestalt provides. And I also wanted to get out there in the world again after being pretty isolated. And I love being part of learning community. And so, plus it didn't hurt that we were in Cape Cod, honestly. And it was one of the best things I ever did for myself. I think the faculty was outstanding. And I'm not just saying that because they're on this call. It was Jackie and Stuart, but they gave us so much, and I learned so much from them. And, you know, like Lorna Jane said, they really created the environment, and, you know, a safe environment to learn and be open. And equally important, my classmates were from really different professional worlds and different levels of experience, you know, some with a lot of coaching experience, some with no coaching experience. And it just worked so well that we all came from different worlds. We even had marine biologists in our class, which was absolutely wonderful. And so the program really prepared me so well. Also, I have to say, for ICF certification, I wasn't going to study for the test because I'm like, why do I need to study? You know, Stuart and Jackie, and they prepared us. And Paula, my friend from the class, said, well, maybe you should just do some sample questions, go to the ICF website and look around. And I said, okay. So I did that for like an hour and a half, and got all the questions right. And I'm not saying that because I'm a genius, but it was because I felt so well prepared. I was glad I put in the hour and a half too, but I mean, we were so well prepared, and it just makes the whole thing so much, I think, easier. The process of ICF certification was actually quite simple. I was very surprised because friends of mine who've gone through it in the past, it wasn't so simple. Let's see. What I especially loved about the program, I loved our practice sessions. We spent the afternoon, I don't know how it'll be structured now, but with half of our cohort and one of the facilitators in a small group. And so we got to be the coach, which I love, being the client, not my favorite, but also a good experience. And because, you know, it's good to know what your clients are going through. And also the observers. And it was so rich. I mean, when do you get to see your colleagues at their job or at work? And that was just so incredible. I got so much from that. So when we moved to virtual learning, which was in the pandemic started 2/3 of the way through our program, I thought, oh, I had some trepidation about it, but honestly, it worked so well. The design was very thoughtful. There were lots of breaks. You know, it was just very well thought out. And I know they put a lot of work and a lot of energy to making that transition, because it is different, you know, teaching and training online or in person. But it really worked. It was fantastic. I can't say enough about it. And you never have to leave home. So I forgot to mention that also, I feel like I am a much better coach because of the program. I feel more confident, even though I've been coaching for a long time. I feel like it really changed me as a coach in a really, really good way, to have the Gestalt perspective and kind of an organizing principle for coaching. My practice now consists mostly of women leaders, and I'm not doing OD consulting anymore. And so my practice right now consists mostly of women leaders. I have executive MBA students and some full-time MBA students. And I particularly love working in healthcare as well with physicians and even in healthcare leaders. One of the things I love about coaching is I love being able to champion people and believe in people, kind of almost before they can believe more fully in themselves. I love that. I love the work. I love that there's ongoing learning through the center. I participated in a group for white folks to be anti-racist or to understand racism. That was fantastic. And it's leading to a longer term group. There's so many opportunities. I sound so Pollyanna-ish about the whole thing, but I truly, it was truly so rewarding. And I can't say enough about it. So if you want to ask me any questions, also like Lorna Jane said in the panel or afterwards, I would welcome them. Thanks for inviting us to share our experience.
Thanks, Jane. Okay, Les, I understand your audio is working, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and speak about your experience.
Is it working?
It
Yes.
is.
Hey, okay, very good. Thank you, thank you. So glad to join. My name is Wes Schwab, and I'm speaking today from my home in Newton, Massachusetts. I'm a primary care doctor and a coach, and I came by way of coaching from a position of management and leadership in my healthcare group. And when I got to be in the C-suite there, all of us were offered the opportunity to get coaches. I found one, and I found that the experience was the best adult educational experience of my life. And in particular, marveled at how psychologically knowing and agile my coach had been with me. So when my shelf life in admin expired, I said, well, I think I want to have what she had. And it turned out she was a product of the Gestalt Center. So looking for career redirection, not quite sure what I want to do, I thought, well, let me explore this coaching thing. And so I was in the 2013 to 14 class. And like the others, I found it just to be a terrific experience. First of all, as Stuart said, it is important that there is a strong theory and matched supportive coaching skills. Well, that matters a lot to me, that if there's a credible model of human learning and human development and techniques that seem tightly bound to it, well, that I'm in. I bought it. Okay. As the others have said, the practicum was extremely useful. Jamie said it's intimidating. Well, it means opening oneself to the group and learning together and using one's own material. It's intense and highly valuable. It's a really good way to land all the learning, and the skill of the faculty in keeping us all safe as we navigated it was extraordinary. And I also had to learn that this was a different kind of helping conversation than the one I've been used to. I'm used to doing a lot of telling. Now I had to do a lot of listening. I'm full of answers. Now I had to be full of questions. And so the practice at that kind of approach to a helping conversation was extremely useful. And so I hung out my shingle in 2014 and have been building my practice ever since. For one, I didn't think that at the age of 65, I would be in a position to have to launch a new profession, but it turns out I did. And I think it's moving toward real sustainability as a coach. And one day I will give up my clinical practice in order to be a full-time coach. But one way I got help ongoing through the Gestalt Center is that I was able to be in supervision groups through all these years to bring the cases that I had as a new practitioner to a master coach and peer learners to help improve my skill. And so I'd say so far so good. Right, I have maybe about 20 clients, and the clients range all the way from trainees who are nearly at risk of failing their training program, to department chiefs and chairs, to people that get sent to me from the State Medical Society because they need some remediation, to people who are just trying to explore what they want to do next. And I have just found these conversations to be a great place to hang out, and so pleased that I'm able to do it as often, as well compensated, I might add, as I am. It's been just a great experience for me. So my thanks to the program for getting me here.
Thanks, Les. So I wanted to invite Mary Grove to introduce herself briefly, and specifically, Mary is in the current program. So Les was in the program when it was all in person. Lorna Jane was in the program when it was all in person. You heard Jane talk about her experience of shifting from in-person to virtual, and Mary is in the program that is 100% virtual. And so I think that since we are talking about the virtual program today, I specifically wanted to ask Mary to address the issue of the experience of doing this in a virtual environment. But tell us a little bit about yourself on the front end.
Hi, so my name is Mary, and I am entering this coaching profession. some might say later in life, but I'm so excited about it. And I am really excited about the last session that I'll be a participant in next weekend. And I can only say that it has been the most incredibly inspiring, educational, heartwarming learning experience I've had in a very long time. And that is due to the instruction. And as Jane, I think it was Jane said, that the format for the online learning I have found to be so incredibly easy to be a participant in. I was filled with trepidation. I was so disappointed it wasn't going to be live. And I have loved every single minute of my however many hours I've gone through to date. I have never been bored. I'm a very fidgety person, which might show up as I'm just sitting here, but I move around a lot and I need to be sort of on the go. And the format allowed for me to sit, the word just left my brain, but I've not been bored. The mix of activities has been very helpful in sustaining the learning and putting the learning to practice. And the practicums in the afternoon each day that we're together have also had a wonderful flow to them. I cannot say enough about how pleased, delighted, and surprised I was by how successfully the center was able to put together this program.
Thank you very much, Mary. So now I want to open it up to the rest of you. And if you will raise your hand, I'll be glad to call on you and you can ask either one of the panelists or someone else from the center your question. If you are not on video, if you'll type your name in the chat, then I'll know to call on you. But if you are on video, if you just raise your hand, it should be easy. Does anyone have a question? Oh, no questions. We were perfectly clear.
So, can I suggest give people a little moment to think for a second, Jackie, to see if they might?
Sure.
And also if people, maybe if they have a comment, not a question, but a comment. Is that okay?
That'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
This is Celia. I really enjoyed this session. There was a lot to learn and a lot to take away. I didn't know what I was exactly coming in for. I was recommended to, I was actually just sent an email from Eleanor Greenberg, which some of you may know. And I told her, I said, all right, I signed up. I don't know what I'm signing up for. So I'm very pleased. And why are you laughing?
Because it takes courage to do something that it takes.
You might be interested.
I'm just noticing all the ways your courage shows up. I'm sorry for sticking my nose in, but there you go.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Really, he's not sorry, but he does it so well.
Maybe I'm not
I just didn't know if you noticed it takes courage to do something like that.
I don't know. But thank you all.
Thank you, Celia. Did you get all of your questions answered? At least the ones for now?
Definitely at least the ones for now. Well, actually I have a question on the dates. If you can't make all of those dates, is there going to be follow-up, just watch online tutorial type of thing? If you miss one of these dates?
No, this is a program in which you're really required to be there for all the dates. There isn't a way to have the learning experience by simply watching. If you noticed, all three of the panelists, and I think Mary as well, spoke about the power of the practicum, which is working live with clients and observing. So because, as well as the fact that as part of the learning sessions that are not the practicum, you're actually doing live work, working with your colleagues. So it's a, you have to sort of actually show up kind of program. That's part of the requirement.
And there's no way to make that up, maybe.
Not
doing something
really.
else. Okay.
No.
It's part, it's so much, as Jackie said, it's so critical to the program that it's not just a content piece, but even the teaching pieces are interactive. We try to make all of our teaching pieces experiential rather than content. So it's not, you're learning concepts, but we want you, Celia, to learn them in your own experiential process as opposed to something that you can memorize. And that's why we lament it a bit, but we stand behind it pretty solidly because we're so committed to having real integrated learning. So
I'll also add that the program is ICF accredited at the PCC level, and the number of hours of contact hours, in-person contact hours, is part of the requirement for that accreditation. So for you to be eligible to use the program to support your ICF certification, that's another piece.
Jackie, can I take the question about the size of our cohort? Who asked that question? Hi, Nava. Hi, Nava.
Nava.
So we work hard to, the cohort is limited on the far end. We try not to get too much bigger than 24, 25 people. But within that, we have a pretty strong commitment to having a 6-to-1 ratio between faculty members and faculty and participants. And the reason is because, and I do think this is, it may not be entirely unique, but it is a special part of our program, that we want everybody to have the opportunity as much as possible to practice every day. And so we try to keep the learning groups to a 6-to-1 ratio. So what we do is add faculty members. Jackie's on the faculty, Jamie's on the faculty, I'm on the faculty, and Carr is on the faculty. We have people we can bring in. We try to keep the entire cohort around 24, 25 people at the max, but learning groups we try to keep to 6 or 5-to-1 with faculty members. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So there are two questions in the chat about related to ICF certification, and Jamie is our ICF guru at the moment, and our link to the ICF. So Jamie, I wanted to invite you to answer those questions. One is, can you tell us more about what's involved for ICF certification if one wanted to head that way? And the other is whether the ICF certification is, and how important it is on top of the program.
Thank you, Jackie. In terms of what's involved in ICF certification, I'll just give a general answer because there are different levels of certification. You can be certified at the ACC, the Associate Certified Coach level, the PCC, Professional Certified Coach level, or MCC, Master Certified Coach level. And the distinction between the three has to do primarily with the number of coaching hours that you actually bring into the certification process. And there are some distinctions in that recertification at different levels have slightly different requirements. But in general, if you are going to pursue ICF certification from a program like this, which is an accredited coach training program by ICF, you meet the requirements for training as a result of participation in this. And that's a big deal because if you don't go to the certification process from an accredited training program, your approach to getting certified through ICF involves a very comprehensive portfolio, submission, and it's a more complex process. I think Jane alluded to it in her remarks. So in addition to the training, you would, for this program, you would have 50 hours of required coach-client interaction, coaching clients. For the ACC, the first level of ICF certification, you need 100 hours. So you'd need to add 50 more hours to your client work. And then you have to pass I think they call it the coach knowledge assessment, but it's a training, an exam that's timed. It, I believe, is still 3 hours to complete the program, to complete the test. And it's a few hundred multiple choice questions. It's a piece of work. You need to move through it quickly, but it's totally doable. And as Jane mentioned, our program intends to provide you with all the information that you need to go into that test effectively. And if you do the couple of hours of prep, going through the ICF website, looking at the ethics course, looking at the core competencies, making sure you know where all of those pieces of material are so that you can reference them quickly while you're taking your exam, because it's open book, then you should be in a great place to pass that exam.
I think at this point, we are proud to say that I think we probably have 60 people by now, wouldn't you say, Lori?
I think at least, yeah.
Every single person who has come through our program that's taken the exam has passed it on the first time. So,
Yeah.
we have a certain amount of pride in that.
Yeah.
So, Henry had a question around, I'm sorry, Jamie, were you able to finish?
The other question that was asked about ICF was, how important is it to get ICF certification on top of this program? I think it really depends on the type of work that you plan to do. I believe that I'm accurate when I say that Les, who's built a very robust practice, is not ICF certified. He's GISC certified. And that's true. Yeah, along with your expertise in your field as a physician, is it appropriate to build a business around. Other people work with clients who require ICF certification before they allow you into their organization. So it really depends on the type of coaching work that you're going to do. Henry, did that answer your question effectively? And Danielle, did I cover everything you wanted me to cover? Okay, great. Henry?
Great. So Henry had another question, and which I want to ask Stuart to talk about, and that is to differentiate between Gestalt coaching and Gestalt psychotherapy, which I believe really goes to the distinction between coaching and psychotherapy.
Well, can I just check with you, Henry? Do you have some experience with Gestalt that informs your question, or were you just speaking more generally?
I do. I trained with Bob and Rita Resnick in Los Angeles, and Todd Burley, and the late Todd Burley. So I'm very familiar with the concepts, et cetera. Just curious, if I made a pivot in my practice, what would that look like from a coaching point of view?
Well, the reason I asked is the question itself is not an unusual question for anybody to ask. What's the difference between coaching and psychotherapy? But Henry's question was specifically, what's the difference between Gestalt coaching and Gestalt psychotherapy? And without putting too fine a point on it, boy, I don't know that I've ever used that expression in a sentence, but I think it belongs here. It's actually an important question, because Gestalt as a psychotherapy has always been what we call a phenomenological approach. That is, that we hold in primacy the client's authority to make meaning of their experience. Now, we don't dismiss that if you're a therapist and you have a client, that there's a hierarchical relationship. There's always a power relationship between a client and a therapist. But Gestalt as an approach to growth and development, originally being a psychotherapeutic approach, always held primarily that the client gets to determine the meaning that is made of any particular experience they're having. which isn't always true of all psychotherapies, right? So in lots of psychotherapies, interpretations and meaning is often made by the therapist. I'm not diminishing it, I'm just differentiating. And the reason that's important is because it holds in primacy the client's ability and authority to determine the meaning of experience. It starts to look a lot more like coaching, because the coach, as Les said, he had to learn to ask more and listen more rather than tell more and say more. So the difference between Gestalt coaching and Gestalt psychotherapy, and I'm both, still exists, but it's far different than coaching and psychotherapy in general. Okay, and what I find the easiest way to because the truth is any therapist is doing some coaching, right? Client comes in, I want to be a better father, I want to be a better husband, I want to be a better this. Well, we're doing a certain amount of coaching, just like any coach is doing a certain amount of stuff that looks like psychotherapy, called building awareness. Why, what do you want to take from this? What goes on with you? What's your experience as you do this? The differentiation between psychotherapy and coaching is far greater in the general public than it is between Gestalt coaching and Gestalt therapy.
Right. So I also want to take the opportunity to say that Nancy Rudkowski wrote a very interesting article that's related to this in the Gestalt Review. I don't remember what year, but if you get the Gestalt Review,
probably 2010, probably 2010 or 2011,
something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So I would recommend that, and if you have difficulty finding it, you could contact the center and we could get you a copy. So now that you've asked a question about more details around the client coaching while in the program and whether there are limits to the number of clients served and the populations, and then are there contracts? So I'm going to attempt to answer this question. So I want to start by saying the requirements for 50 hours of client coaching is there for a number of reasons. One, we really believe it's important that you have the experience of coaching people outside the program. So while we have students who coach each other and count that as part of their client hours, I don't know that it's a formal requirement, but we really want you to be coaching people who are not in the program as well, whether they be other coaches or whether they be people who are not coaches, because the experience of coaching people who don't work with coach language is really important to have. And the 50-hour requirement is both so that you have good experience under your belt, and also from our commitment to getting you a long way toward your first level, the ACC certification. I'll add some details, and then I'll just have you ask some more clarifying questions. So this is also about supporting you to learn how to go out and, quote, get clients, how you have the conversation that talks about what you're offering, how you engage with someone to, I guess I'm going to say, make it interesting, how to be able to answer their questions, and also so that you learn about how you frame a coaching engagement as distinct from a coaching session. So the engagement is the series of sessions over time that are aimed at kind of a broader set of coaching goals, versus the session, which you experienced, a session that Stuart held with Celia, that has a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Well, the series of sessions builds the engagement. And so the requirement is really about supporting you to learn how to do that. There actually are no limits to the number of clients served in terms of those 50, although I think we strongly encourage that you're not just going out and doing 50 individual clients where you're just having one session with each client. And there's no limit to the population that I'm aware of. Jump in here, Jamie and Stuart, if you have a different understanding.
I don't think there's any limitation to the population, but for ICF, they do have number of hours and number of clients. In other words, you do,
true.
Right. You can't just do 100 hours with one client. I think for ACC, it's 10 clients in 10 hours, something like that.
A little bit paid.
I think you're right about that.
And they have to have a certain, and Lori was adding, they have to have a certain number that are paid.
And it can be $1 an hour. I mean, it doesn't have to be,
right.
It just has to be officially paid on some of those.
Barter counts as pay. I think it's about 80% have to be paid. Maybe it's 75 right now. I think that's shifted a little bit during COVID. I want to ask,
right now.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, Jenny?
70 of the 100 hours required for ACC level certification are paid because
it can be a cup of, but it can be a cup of coffee.
It can be a cup of coffee, and it goes back up to 75 whenever they feel like COVID is behind us.
Can I have one piece about the coaching and student coaching? The other thing too, I think, Jackie, I agree with Jackie that part of the learning is to how do you go out and get coaching clients and establish those engagements. And that said, though, we have in recent years had opportunities with organizations friendly to GISC to arrange for some student coaching opportunities with those organizations. It's really been a nice way to get some of the coaching students jump started or in some longer term engagements.
Part of why that's continued is because they've been so happy with the work they've gotten from our
Yeah.
I just speak.
So you asked, are contracts with clients required? But you put the word contracts in quotes. So Nava, I don't know what you mean by that. So I don't know how to answer the question.
I went to an open house yesterday with the Cleveland Gestalt Center, and they were very insistent about contracts, that every client, the face-to-face or the coaching session was a contractual agreement between the client and the coach. So I was curious if you're as rigid as that.
I'll talk about why the requirement. So the issue around contracts is not about a signed physical piece of paper, but the issue around contracts is about being very clear about the work that you're doing and that you're focusing on. What are you trying to achieve? You saw Stuart pay very clear attention in his coaching with Celia to understand what did she want to work on and how would she
define success?
And specifically, what outcomes was she looking for and how would she know if she had gotten there? So those are the important things around a contract. And we are, I'll use your language, yes, we are, quote, rigid about that. We as well as the ICF, believe that is really important in terms of being able to focus on doing good coaching. I'm curious, well, I can invite you into a conversation about that another time. I'm paying attention to the time and I want to address the question about, does the program address coaching individual clients? Yes, absolutely. It doesn't address group coaching specifically. We have had people do their research paper on group coaching or on team coaching, and I'm making a distinction between the two. We have an increasing level of interest in group coaching, and I think it would be fair to say that it's a sprint for us to cover everything we need to cover on individual coaching in the time that we have. And I know Lori and I have talked, and I don't know what other coaching faculty have been in a conversation with her about developing a program on group coaching, but we are not currently explicitly including it in this program. Stuart.
Yes, I just wanted to circle back to NAVA, and if you take what Jackie's saying, what the real issue here is that contracting with a client is a coach requirement. It's not a GISC requirement. It's not a Gestalt Institute of Cleveland requirement. It is it's an industry requirement that you almost can't be coaching if you don't know specifically what the client is trying to achieve in that particular hour. It's just an interesting conversation that they may get a lot out of. It's not that they might not get a lot out of it, but the way coaching works hard to assure that the client is getting a specific growth and development opportunity around behavior is to focus on the contract. So that's why it's not GISC, it's not GIC, it's not Harvard, it's not Penn University. Everybody focuses on contract.
It's one of the competencies of coaching, and I think one of the ICF competencies that they focus on.
Right. So I'm going to attempt to answer really quickly Charlie's question, and then I'm going to hand it off to Lori. So Charlie, you asked a question about how the reading, glad to hear the reading is required, and how does it get integrated into the process sessions? A couple of ways. We reference it through the session. The learning groups often talk about it. Sometimes they divide up the reading and share with each other kind of what they're learning. But at the moment, that would be the main way, as well as whatever reading that you are required to have some specialized reading related to the topic of your paper, and which is also will also translate into a presentation. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lori to address a few other things.
Sure, great. Thanks so much, Jackie. And I do see one last question in there that maybe I can answer, talking about the 5 or 6 to 1 ratio, and asking if we circle around. And I believe at this time in the program, even though you will have your faculty mentor coach, you will have experience getting feedback from all the different faculty in the program. So if there are 2 or 3 program faculty, you'll have the opportunity to work with all of the faculty in practicum groups, which is a really nice, really adds to the richness, I think, of the learning. I just didn't want to let that go because I think it's a really nice
and as you said, each learning group is attached to a mentor coach, one of the faculty members, but you have access to all of the other faculty, and you even get to say, you know, Stuart, I enjoyed talking with you, but I really would like to spend some more time talking with Jamie. Can we skip our mentor coaching session? Can I do that with Jamie? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, and I see it looks like Charlotte's asking how many faculty there will be. It's somewhat participant dependent on our numbers, but we, you know, if we have 15 people, give or take, we'll have 3 faculty. So it really kind of depends on the numbers in the program, but we'll likely have 3 to 4 faculty depending on our final count. So I wanted to, before we close, I did want to share, and there was a question earlier, I asked Jackie to hold off and I'd answer it with my slide. Just want to share just a little bit about key dates, fees, application process for the program. And Sue, yeah, if you put up my slide, that'll be helpful. We are, the program begins, Jamie told you a little bit earlier, October 21st. This is completely live online offering. And we do anticipate, we've had such success with our live online offering that it will be a regular offering for us, an online version. The program begins October 21st. We are accepting applications right now, so applications are open. We ask that you submit your application online with a $250 application fee. That just shows your interest in the program. And all but $50 of that fee is fully refundable. The rest is sort of an admin cost. But beyond that, I do want to share a bit about, we have several ways to make the program more affordable. And one of those is we offer every year an early application special, and this helps us with our planning. And so if you do apply by June 30th, you can take 10% off the cost of the tuition. We also have some additional prepayment discounts. So for those of you who want to pay up front and within 30 days of your application, we have an additional discount there. So you can save, close to 15% off the tuition if you're ready to make a commitment in the during the summer. And I should say, I want to make sure that this is clear. For any program tuitions paid up until the start of the program, all but that $50 is fully refundable. So if you just something, in life came up where, that is not at risk, that's fully refundable. And then on a prorated basis as you go through the program. Although I don't think, I don't think in 140 participants had anyone stop partway through the program, maybe one way back. But so the other thing too, so if you're not in a position or don't want to pay up front, I would say the majority of our participants are on some kind of a payment plan where you can pay in monthly installments during the course of the program. Or sometimes people pay in thirds or monthly. So that's very workable. If you're in the state of Massachusetts, if you're employed by a Massachusetts employer, we participate in the Workforce Training Fund Express Grant Program, which can offer up to $3,000 off the cost of the program for Massachusetts for-profit organizations and some nonprofits. So that's something we'd be happy to share more about. And we do offer scholarships. We have some scholarships available, especially aimed at helping nonprofits and those who are in or work within marginalized populations. So that's a bit about cost. I think that's most of it. Does anyone have any questions before we finish up and close about that? Well, very good. We're always happy to answer questions. We'll share our contact information with you. I think you know where to find us, but we'll
they could reach out to any of the representatives if they had a question, correct, Lori?
Absolutely. And if you just contact the office, we can put you in touch with any of our faculty members, or in fact with any of our visiting coaching graduates, or if there are other graduates who are in you want to talk to someone in a particular field or specialty, we're very happy to arrange meetings with some of our graduates. So I think that brings our time to a close. We're right on time, and I want to first thank our faculty and our coaching graduates for being here. Thank you so much to Celia for stepping up and being our volunteer client today. Really appreciate that.
It's fun.
And great, I'm glad. And really helpful to all of us, I think. And I want to ask Sue Toplansky, our program coordinator, who's been working in the background on putting our slides up and down. And Sue, can you put your camera on just so we can say thank you to you? There you are. Hi, Sue. Sue's done a wonderful job in putting this event together for us and running things from behind the scenes. But most of all, thank you all for joining us today. Really appreciate you spending some time. And as always, please stay in touch. I'm happy to have conversations with anybody, but any aspect of GISC or our program, and really appreciate your being here.